I had meant to, going back to the title, I had meant to ask you about the soul of uncertainty. And that's an interesting conjunction, soul and uncertainty. What do you have in mind there?
Well, I originally I was going to call the book Loose Ends, Learning to Love Uncertainty.
Uh-huh.
That
Yeah.
was a working title.
Yeah.
And the person that helped me with Dancing on the River, he said to me, this book seemed like magical realism from what he read. And I agreed, but and then I don't know, something came to me, this idea of what about the word soul. And I never liked the title, Loose Ends Learning, although it was a good title.
Yeah.
And it spoke to really the message.
Yeah.
But I liked the soul of uncertainty. It just felt right when I heard it.
Uh-huh.
And as I said, I originally was a novel journey, but then a fable for our times. I remember when I came up with that, how excited I was. But this word soul, I think that's really what you're talking about. And
yeah.
I used to write poetry and write songs. And I put them all together. There's 4 computers. I just typed them up and I put a cover on it. And I said, songs and poems for all souls. And so I used the word back then,
Uh-huh.
many years ago, the word soul. And soul's in a lot of books, but I remember I went to a workshop a few years ago down in Esalen that was sponsored by Sun Magazine. It's a metaphysical magazine out of North Carolina. And they had different workshops, and one was about the word soul, about writing about the soul and what does that mean. And I've thought about that a lot. And I've always thought about, for example, when you meet somebody or somebody sings and you say, wow, they really have soul. And so it can mean, it's one of those things, I think, that is kind of beyond words, that they're just not words that can describe it. But I started to look at, what do I mean by the word soul? And I remember in this workshop, we read several articles about the soul, and it's this ineffable feeling you have. You can't put in words, but I looked at it kind of like the essence of what is.
Sure.
Essence.
Yeah, right.
But what's interesting is that with an interview that I did recently about explaining how you find your soul of uncertainty, what I did is I looked at the word soul, and that's what I thought might be interesting to do right now.
Okay.
To look at the letters in the word soul, and you look at, what does the S stand for, right? If you really look at that word, it's the key how you find your own soul of uncertainty, so that you can navigate uncertainty, so that you can find inner peace in the midst of all this uncertainty. And so the S really stands for stillness, for silence. And when you tune into your stillness and your silence, you find a sense of spirit. And that's what the S really reminds you to do. It's a reminder. It's a daily reminder of, how do I find my own way, my own path to help me in these times. And the O really stands for openness, to be open to new ideas, new ways of thinking of things, and to be vulnerable, to be vulnerable, to allow yourself to reach out, to feel, to trust. And then you look at the U. What does the U stand for? And the U really reminds you to be unattached. And there's so many spiritual teachings that talk about when you get attached, and that's where all the suffering comes in. It's what the whole Buddhist thing is. What causes suffering is your attachment to certain results, to the way you want it to be. And so often people want life to be a certain way. They want people to be a certain way. They want their business to be a certain way. They want somebody to like them, but it doesn't work out that way all the time. And then they get devastated. So this idea of being unattached to the result, it doesn't mean that you still don't have dreams and goals and a vision for a better world. You still have to have that. But what happens is, you're always going to have goals and dreams. And when you achieve them, you're going to have other goals. And that's one of the ideas of the book. There's always going to be something else, because we're always evolving. We're always expanding. And so my idea about change, which I wrote about in Dancing on the River 7 years ago, is kind of shifted to, rather than change, I really look at how we expand, how we evolve. And so then we look at the L, and what does the L remind us of? Of love,
Yeah.
right? Of love, and sometimes love is letting go.
Hmm. You know what? You've just, that turns out to be a perfect wrap, I think, for this interview. It kind of summarizes the book and a lot of what you're about. So I think this is a good place for us to wrap it up.
Well, I think so too.